Hello, I'm Randy Nesse from the Arizona State University Center for Evolution and Medicine. Our guest today is George Somero from Stanford University, whose book, Adaptive Biochemistry, opened my eyes. I think he has some of the same experience I have had, but when I took biochemistry, they made me memorize a lot of things and spit them back out and then memorize them again. And they never said anything about what they were for. When I opened his book, I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, it is possible to make this all interesting and meaningful and easier to remember. What was your introduction to biochemistry, George?
Well, I think mine was much like yours, much like most students. They take a biochemistry class and they're sort of force-fed metabolic pathways, a long suite of chemical reactions, be cyclical or linear, and you come away with your retinas, coated with these chemical reactions, but with very minimal understanding of what they mean biologically, how it helps an organism deal with particular dietary issues or environmental issues. So that was the motivation behind doing the book, was to make biochemistry interesting. Teach the same fundamental principles, how organisms process energy, how they make proteins, but do it in different environmental contexts by telling stories that I think kind of stick in people's memories. And in fact, you can forget the details of the pathways. You can always look those up. But the stories of what a biochemical system means as far as assisting organisms and dealing with the world, I think that's the important message.
So what are a couple of the best examples of things that just become interesting in an evolutionary context?
Well, I did my thesis work as a Stanford graduate student in Antarctica at McMurdo Station. Spent a year looking at fish that die of heat death at about +4 Celsius.
So that's just about freezing?
That's right about the freezing point. The freezing point of seawater is
they die of hyperthermia, of heat stress.
Right, at temperatures that most organisms die of cold death.
38 degrees.
Right, exactly. At temperatures that are lethally cold for most organisms. So I was curious about what types of biochemical changes establish the thermal optima for an organism and the thermal tolerance limits, which are sort of two sides of the same coin.
So what temperature is ideal and what they can put up with?
Exactly, yeah. And this is obviously an important question in the context of climate change. The world is warming. We're seeing more extremes of high temperatures. But in general, it's a question that cuts across evolution of all organisms, because every organism has a certain range of temperatures where it works best. Extend that range out, or extend the temperatures out, the organism is going to perform suboptimally and eventually die. So the question is, can we give a biochemical, a mechanistic explanation for these thermal tolerance optima?
And this temperature business is serious. Here in Phoenix last year, more people died from the heat than ever before.
That's becoming a worldwide thing. In fact, there's been some fascinating work done, both observational work in the field, but also modeling, looking at what's going to happen at low latitudes and equatorial regions as the world gets warmer and the humidity goes up. And we all know in Phoenix, for example, it's usually very dry, so
right.
I can be comfortable with the temperatures in 90 degrees. If it were where I work in China, it's commonly 90 to 100 degrees, 100% humidity, so your ability to cool is very low. And that is going to be one of the major constraints on the distribution of mammals, not just humans, but camels, horses, dogs, cats. They're reaching a point where they can't evaporate water adequately to cool the body temperature. So most of my work is done what are commonly called cold-blooded organisms, ectotherms, more appropriate word, organisms whose body temperatures vary a lot as the environmental temperature varies. Mammals like ourselves try to keep a stable body temperature, and we require evaporative cooling for that. It gets too hot, it gets too humid, it ain't the heat, it's humidity, well, it's both. And a large part of the globe, in terms of where humans live, is within a century or two, is going to be facing conditions that are inimical to life.
An article in this morning's paper was a village in India that's essentially uninhabitable, they claimed.
I saw it in the New York Times this morning. Yeah, exactly. And there was a study done, because temperatures are monitored so extensively around the globe. There was a city in Iran, I think 3 years ago, where the combination of heat and humidity, had it persisted for more than an hour or so, could have killed every mammal, because no longer the ability to evaporate water.
Let's go on in just a minute and talk about exactly what goes wrong in the body when it gets too hot.
Okay.